was one guy who, even though several of the students were really engaged, this guy was not. And I don't know what his essay said, but he mostly was intimidating to me all throughout the day. He had his arm cocked over the back of his chair like this. He had his legs splayed out in front of him, and he alternated between scowling at me and kind of looking around the room bored. And it just really seemed to me like he would rather be anywhere but here. And Anna had to remind me a couple times, because I'm like, you know, this bleeding heart person, these kids are victims of the system and we're going to go help them. And she said, Heather, I need you to remember, these are not all choir boys here. Some of these kids have murdered people and you need to be on your toes. So now here's this guy who's like glaring at me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad these security guards are here. I did not feel entirely safe. He seemed hostile to me. But there's a quiz at the end of class, and I go through some of the quiz questions throughout the course of the day to make sure that everybody has an easy time with the quiz at the end, just kind of emphasizing what's important. And right before lunch, I just started rattling off questions from the quiz to see who remembered what. And I said, who remembers what the energy vortices are in the body? And this guy who had been scowling at me all day, everybody else was quiet. Nobody else knew the answer. And he said, chakras. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, and who remembers what the ductless gland system is that corresponds with each of the chakras? And there was silence, except for Jimmy, who said the endocrine system. And I said, and who went up on the mountain and did a vision quest and came down with the system of Reiki? And he said, Macau Yusui. And so nobody else who had been chatting with me all day and seemed really engaged in the class knew what was going on. And he knew all of the answers, which blew me away. And so when everyone went to lunch and I was left there with Anna, I said, oh my gosh, Jimmy. And she said, yes. She said, one of the things you have to learn when you are working with these kinds of populations is that active listening is not something that they are taught, and that we tend to take for granted. That when you are communicating with someone, they will look you in the eye, they will nod, they will answer your questions. She said, a lot of these kids don't have that, but do not assume that they are not paying attention. So that was just a really kind of watershed moment for me, and a really heartwarming moment. Oh, and then I wanted to say at the end of class when they were practicing on each other, again, not touching, so they partnered up. So Jimmy was partnered with someone who was sitting in a chair, and Jimmy went to offer him Reiki, and he held his hands up like this. And anybody can do Reiki, you know, 7-year-old kids can do Reiki, but it's not something you can fake your way through. You can't just watch me and go through the motions. Your heart and soul kind of has to be in it. You have to have a positive intention towards your partner, or it just doesn't work. And he put up his hands, and the kid that was sitting in that chair, and again, hyper-vigilant in this dangerous situation, fight or flight is definitely the standard, and anything relaxing, rest and digest, parasympathetic is rare. So Jimmy puts up his hands, and within like 2 minutes, the kid sitting in that chair, his head slumped over, and he about fell out of the chair because he fell asleep. And afterwards, they were excitedly talking to each other. And Jimmy's like, I could feel this buzzing all in the top of your head. And the kid said, I just got so relaxed. I just couldn't even keep my head up. That was really wonderful. And Jimmy just was beaming. It was the first time I saw him smile all day. And he was so proud of himself. And it was just really an incredible experience for me to watch that unfold. So some of their feedback from the class was, I came down with bad energy. I'm now leaving with really good vibes. My favorite thing was everything. And then when I asked them, what would you do to improve upon this course? One of them said, put it out to the media worldwide.